This video is a summary of all the information you need to build a log cabin like this by hand without machinery like a tractor and by spending almost zero on purchased building material. People build foundations in many different ways, with concrete, mortar, or just with rocks. This log cabin is going to be 3 by 4 meter or 10 by 13 feet, but the roof and floor will be extended with 2 meter or 7 feet in front of the cabin as a seating area. Most 3 by 4 meter or 10 by 13 feet cabins I found have a foundation of 6 points, 3 foundation points on the longer side of the cabin. I will actually make 8 foundation points because of the extension of the roof and floor. First I will clean the ground I'm going to use and make it flat. Then I'll decide how to place the cabin, as I'll put a majority of the windows on the south facing side. Now I will measure where the 8 foundations should be and I'll dig 8 holes. Most top layers of ground are soft, and if you would build a foundation straight on top of this soft ground, in time the cabin will not be straight anymore, as the foundation will slowly sink into the ground. Because of this, we must dig 8 holes into the ground until we've reached the hard ground. An option to do it without any purchased building material is to fill the holes that are made with small rocks that you found in the area, and then if there are really big straight rocks available, you can build the final foundation by putting these big rocks on top of the small rocks. Many people these days will use concrete as foundation. I will use small flat rocks and then build a foundation using mortar. Mortar is composed of cement, fine sand and lime. It is used as a binding material when building with brick, block and stone. Basically it will hold the stones you use in one place. It's like glue for stones. Different as concrete, which is a structural building material. By using concrete you don't need to use rocks, but I want to use rocks for the traditional look of the cabin. There are different types of mortar available and we should choose the right one. You only have to combine mortar with water. Mortar should be kept moist for 36 hours. It's best to make the stones you use wet before mixing them with mortar. The mortar reaches 60% of its strength in the first 24 hours and will take up to 28 days to reach its full strength. However, after 24 to 48 hours it is strong enough so that you can continue building on it. I'll make the foundations a little bigger so that 3 extra logs can lie on the foundations inside the cabin. I'll put smaller logs over these 3 logs to make the foundation for the floor. On top of these logs I can put lumber from a demolished house or any other lumber I can find which will serve as a floor. I will top the foundation with large plates of sheet metal to keep termites and small rodents out of the cabin. The first 4 logs are called the sill logs. These are the best logs I've found and also the biggest logs I'm going to use, and will be around 12 inch or 30 centimeter in diameter. 2 of them will be lying on the foundation. I will make a saddle notch on the logs where they meet with the foundation. I will explain later more about the saddle notches. As my foundation will not have a rebar sticking out, as I'm using mortar and stone and not concrete where rebars are used, in the 2 logs that lie on the foundation at both log ends, I will drill a hole into the foundation with a hammer drill and connect the 2 first sill logs with a long screw into the foundation. Notches. A notch is a cut made into the wood to fit the logs together. There are different types of notches. Since I will be using round logs from the wood from the forest and not square wood, for log cabins made with round logs, the most used notch is one of the saddle notches. The 2 most used saddle notches are the round notch and the compression fit notch. The round notch. The round notch, also known as saddle cope, is made by cutting the exact curve of the log below into the bottom of the log going above it. The downside of this notch is that sometimes it doesn't stay tight after shrinking. What is shrinking? As the logs dry out over time, the wood fibers shrink. They always shrink in the radial direction. This means that the logs will get smaller in the radius and your wall will shrink down, but it doesn't shrink in length. So in a period of 2 to 5 years after the home has been built, settled and the logs have reached their final stage, you might have to do a second caulking or chinking. Caulking or chinking are both ways to fill the gaps between the logs. Doing it the traditional way, we can fill the gaps, for an example with dry moss, sheep wool, or a mixture of sand, lime, silt, ash and dirt. Doing caulking or chinking the industrial way, then it is a flexible elastic sealing. This will cost more, of course. This notch is very popular in Russia and European countries. The compression fit notch. This notch, sometimes called shrink to fit, is made to get tighter as the logs settle and shrink. Each log is supposed to get closer to the log under it over time, because of shrinking and compression. Sometimes, however, gaps can still appear after a few years. This notch is very popular in North America. I choose to use a round notch because it seems to work just as well and also seems a little easier to make than a compression fit notch. How to actually make the round notch? You make the notch by cutting the exact curve of the log below into the bottom of the log going above it. After placing the sill logs, first I put the new log on top of the foundation logs, or the sill logs, and then I use a log scriber to draw a line of which part needs to be cut out. We do this on all four sides before starting to cut the notch out, because if we would only do one side first, then when this side falls into place, it will not be correct anymore on the other side as the log lies in an angle. First you measure the distance between the new log and the log that lies directly under it. Then you set the log scribe exactly on the same distance. The log scribe has two bubble spirit levels on it, so that you can see that you keep the scribe tool straight. Work from the center down to the left and then from the center down to the right. Now turn the log around. First do the edges with a chisel, because with a chainsaw the edges become splintered. And then make the notch holes with the chainsaw, or if you prefer with hand tools. However not necessary, you can also make a full scribe, meaning a hand-cut groove along the bottom side. This allows the top log to fit perfectly to the bottom log. To make it airtight, you can fill it up with stone wool inside the gap and an air gasket around the gap. However, this is not something you must do, as you can also fill the gaps with, for an example, moss or sheep wool on any place where the logs don't fit perfectly. If the log has a little curve in it, the curve of the log should be faced in the direction outside of the wall. Some people make the gaps for the door and windows during the notching of the logs, and others do it when the walls are finished. I choose to do it after the walls are finished, as most people seem to do. Now the walls are finished. With a chainsaw I'm going to cut out the door and windows. When I make a frame for the door out of 3 thick planks, I will make sure all of the logs behind the wooden frame are all fixed to the door frame, as otherwise some of the log ends would not be connected to anything on this side, for the firmness of the total build. The door itself can be made by planks, or probably it won't be too hard to find a free door that someone threw away. Same counts for the window. As for the height of the bed, I am 1.85 m or 6'1", plus taking in account that the walls will shrink in a few years' time, I will build the height of the bed frame at 2.20 m or 7.2 feet by adding 5 logs into the walls. The roof. In time wood will shrink a little, so be aware that whatever you build in the interior, the roof will still come down a bit. Instead of buying timber, the roof will be built from thinner logs. First, on both sides I'll build an A-frame with logs. Then I'll add 5 logs as basic frame for the roof, and these logs will be sticking out 2 meters in front of the cabin. This will become the outside seating area. Now with even thinner logs I will make the actual roof framing. When this is ready, I will finish the roof with whatever recycled roof material I can find. Trees. The most popular logs used in America and Europe are pine, cedar, cypress, spruce, walnut, fir, hemlock, oak and poplar. The best logs to use are the ones that are as straight as possible from every single angle and have a good length of about 10 to 12 meters, and where the log diameter is as similar as possible on both ends. Ideally, the logs for the walls should all be between 10 and 12 inches or between 25 and 30 centimeters. Older trees have more toxins in them and because of that more hardwood, and therefore are more resistant to rot. Of course, to stop wood from rotting, you can also use preservatives. The higher altitude the trees were grown, the better. Mostly my choice of logs will be depending on what is available in the place I'm going to build the log house. Ideally, the log should be felled or cut down in winter because then the tree sap is at its lowest. Ideally, you should also dry the logs for 6 months or even better 1 to 2 years so that the cabin will shrink less, but I don't have time for this. The log should be debarked because it helps speeding up the drying process and also because the bark can provide a hiding place for insects. Now it's time to walk around the forest, start choosing logs and also mark the trees that will work best for me. It's best to select trees that are in the shadow of big trees and would die eventually. Also, you should not cut down too many trees in the same area. Now it is time to fell the logs with an axe or chainsaw. To fell a tree with a chainsaw, we first make one of these 3 notches on the side of the tree where the tree should fall to. And then we cut a straight line from the other side where the tree should not fall towards, and the tree will fall. The bark should be removed within the first 48 hours because after that it will become much harder to do. So I will fell a few trees, then debark them with a draw knife or debarking spade, and then fell another few trees, debark them, and so on. How many logs are needed? Ideally, the logs are 10 to 12 inch or 25 to 30 centimeter diameter, but at a very minimum they should be 8 inch up to somewhere like 14 inch or 20 centimeter to 35 centimeter. The length of this cabin is 13 feet or 4 meter and the width 10 feet or 3 meter. Average log diameter I expect 10 inch or 25 centimeter. In order to make the notches at the end, we need each log to be 3 feet or 1 meter longer. The roof will be in a 45-degree angle over a 3 meter width. As the log cabin is 10 feet wide or 3 meters, the run will be 5 feet or 1.5 meters, and over 45 degrees the rise will also be 5 feet or 1.5 meters. The rafter length will then become 2 meter and 12 centimeters. These thin logs should become a little longer though to protect the house from rain. 2 meter 30 or 7.5 feet I think should be good. I want the roof a little higher as where the bed framing starts, let's say 50 centimeter higher, which will be approximately 2 logs on top of the roof framing log. The space on the sides not needed to sleep can be used to store stuff. At approximately 25 centimeter from the foundation the floor will lie. 2 meter 20 higher the bed frame will start. From the bottom of the bed frame, approximately 60 centimeters higher, depending on the size logs used, will be the top of the wall. This means that the wall will be 3 meter and 5 centimeters high or 10 feet. If each log is on average 10 inch or 25 centimeter, then for a wall of 10 feet we need a little over 12 logs per wall. For the length of each side of the wall we need 12 logs of 5 meter or 16.4 feet, and for the width of each side of the wall we need 12 logs of 4 meter or 13.1 feet. Besides this we need 7 logs of 7 meter or 23 feet. The first 2 will be used as sill logs and will be used on the foundation of the cabin and for the outside seating area. The other 5 will be used for the roof. As we need 2 walls of 12 logs for the length and for the width, we need 24 logs of 5 meter or 16.4 feet and 24 logs of 4 meter or 13.1 feet plus 7 logs of 23 feet. In total 54 logs to build the walls. I did however forget the 2 pillar logs in front of the cabin, which should be 3 meter 5 or 10 feet, which come extra. Now the frame for the roof is finished, we need a bunch of thinner logs of 2 meter 30 or 7.5 feet to finish the roof. How many of these I need depend on the type of recycled material I can find to make the roof waterproof. Now that the basic construction is ready and I have a roof to sleep under, I can find recycled material to insulate the cabin. After researching how other log cabins were built, it took quite some time to put together what would be a logical, very cheap way to build a log cabin in a traditional way. I hope you guys learned something in this video and I look forward to sharing the actual building process with you. Now, if you are planning to build a cabin in the wilderness, far away from your house and your tools, let's look at the tools that would be good to take with you. An adze. An adze is like an axe but turned 180 degrees clockwise. An adze is used for hewing logs. What does that mean? When a log is felled, meaning the tree has been cut down, and then when the bark is taken off, Often the log is not fully straight, as there can be round edges on the tree where it used to be a branch. With an adze you can take these edges off. Ideally you'll want a 3 pounds long handled 30 to 42 inch or a 76 to 106 centimeter adze. An axe. An axe will be used for many different jobs. Ideally you'll want a 4 pounds or 2 kilogram long handled 26 to 32 inch or 66 to 81 centimeter axe. A chainsaw. Whether or not to use a chainsaw is your own choice. A chainsaw is an expensive tool, however you can also buy one used. It substitutes an axe for felling or cutting down a tree and can also be used for cutting a log and to make a notch in a log. Chainsaws come in different sizes and you want one for logs over 12 inch or 30 centimeter in diameter. Ideally a chainsaw with an 18 inch or 45 centimeter bar length. A draw knife. A draw knife is a tool to debark a log, meaning to take the log off from the tree. This is done as soon as possible after the tree is felled, ideally in the spring and peeled within 48 hours. The sooner you do it, the easier it will go. Ideally is a draw knife around 22 inch or 55 centimeter with a 13 inch or 33 centimeter cutting blade so that you can also use it for longer logs. A log dog. A log dog is only used to hold a log in position when you are notching them. Ideally is a log dog between 20 and 30 inch or between 50 and 75 centimeter and 4 to 6 pounds or 2 to 3 kilogram. A mallet. A mallet is a hammer with a rubber head. They are used to put the logs in place and to bring the corners together. You can also use them for hitting adzes, chisels and log dogs. The best weight is 2 to 3 pounds or 1 to 1.5 kilogram. A peavey. A peavey is used to roll a log into position, which can be difficult if it's a big log, if the log is uneven, or when you're moving multiple logs over a short distance if you don't have a vehicle. It will save a lot of pain in your back. Ideally you will want a peavey which can roll logs up to 20 inch or 50 centimeter diameter. A carpentry square, which is a measurement tool. Chisels to make the notches. A log scribe for log home builders to make measurements for the notch. A measurement tape. A plumb bob to make a vertical reference line. A spirit level, which is made to show if a surface is horizontal or vertical. A claw hammer. A manual saw. An electric drill with head for screws. A thick rope to put a tree from one to another location. Extra pencils for the log scribe. Shovels, a spade and a normal shovel. Chainsaw safety gear including gloves. Nails and or screws. A sharpener for a chainsaw. A sharpener for an axe and draw knife. Something with wheels to carry the big logs. A pickaxe. A grinder if you have off-grid electricity. A chain disc and an abrasive disc for a grinder. Optional is also a debarking spade, which does a similar job as a draw knife. I look forward to making this project together with you and I wish you all the best on your own project. If you like my videos, please consider supporting on Patreon.